Welcome to the Year of the Movie podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from the year of the movie 2023.
Coming in with some fun energy so far.
I'm Sebastian.
I'm Maggie.
Welcome to our podcast. For our video viewers, Bryce could not join us today, and that's okay. So we don't have multiple cameras, we just have this one shot. I hope that's okay. The difference is you don't get close-ups on us when we are talking.
Which, I understand being sad to not get that, but
You gotta get our beautiful faces.
we're gonna power through together.
So today's episode is about the movie Renfield.
Yes.
And why is the movie about Renfield? Why is the podcast about the movie Renfield?
We started this podcast because 2023 is an extremely goofy year for movies. Even besides the strikes, highlights so far include Cocaine Bear, 65, Barbie, which is on the better side.
Good can still be odd.
Yeah.
80 for Brady.
80 for Brady.
Strays.
The list is literally endless, which is why we'll be doing this podcast until we die.
That nameless Gal Gadot action movie. It has a name, but it's
Heart of Stone?
Heart of Stone.
Yeah.
The description is something where it's just like, a spy has to do this thing. It's a really basic description.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about Renfield. And if you don't know, the synopsis for Renfield is Renfield, the tortured aide to his narcissistic boss Dracula, is forced to procure his master's prey and do his every bidding. However, after centuries of servitude, he's ready to see if there's a life outside the shadow of the Prince of Darkness.
It is a comedic take on the classic IP of Dracula.
Indeed.
What were your first impressions when you heard about this movie?
I was stoked.
Yes.
Because, if you don't know, listeners, Dracula is played by Nicolas Cage.
Yep.
Which,
is
it's just
great.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I think this year is a year of the movie, because we have Nick Cage playing Dracula.
You're getting a lot of people just kind of yes-anding their way through their career.
Yeah.
And Nicolas Cage is one of them.
Yeah. And, with Nick Cage in this movie, Renfield is our protagonist in this film. And he's played by Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult is great.
Yep.
And then also in this movie, Awkwafina. So, I definitely saw the trailer, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Awkwafina, people either really like her or really don't.
Yes.
Her music was kind of funny, and I've liked her in some specific roles. This one, she was pretty good.
Yeah.
They didn't really give her character a whole lot to do,
No.
which we'll get to later. How familiar are you with the Dracula story?
I know there's a vampire.
Have you read it?
No, I have not read it.
Yeah.
Who do you think I am? I don't read books. I read comics. I read the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics. I read Contact in high school.
You've read the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics. You read Contact in high school, and then you read Leonard Cohen's really sad novel.
Really sad novel. Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of your spectrum.
I also read The Physics of Star Trek in high school, which is a nonfiction book breaking down the science in Star Trek. So, I do read. That's not why we're here. We're here to talk about Dracula. I am familiar with Dracula. I have seen movies.
Brag. I was also pretty excited when I saw the trailer. That was the first time that I heard about this movie. And it took me a while to get into Dracula, but then once I got a copy of it, I think I've probably read it once a year since then. So maybe 3 times now. There was a thing a while ago, I don't know if it's still ongoing, but because Dracula, the book, is written in a series of letters, then there was an email thing that you could sign up for that would send you the letters in real time for each date. And that's great.
That is very good. That's a good use of the internet.
There are ways that people are modernizing Dracula, like this movie.
And there is a different Dracula movie this year.
Yes, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, or maybe it's just called the Demeter, but it's...
But we'll talk about that one as well. But for for today,
that one is not a comedy.
Yeah. So today we're talking about a comedy, Renfield.
Yeah.
I gave the trailer description in the last episode.
Yeah.
If you want to do this one.
Yeah. We talked about the trailer for a couple different reasons. One, we can't really show you the trailer, so we're going to do a shot-by-shot recreation anyway. And then also because these are newer movies, there's just not a whole lot of history attached to them that we can touch on. Yeah. So this is a good way to introduce the movie, and then afterwards, if you're into it and you don't want spoilers, you can pause this, go watch it, come back.
But when we're done with telling the trailer description, we will say, now time for spoilers.
Yes.
I think in the last episode we forgot to.
We did after the spoiler happened. Yeah. Anyway. Renfield, Nicholas Hoult, bursts into a room, saying, "Sorry to interrupt," and a man asks him, "Are you okay?" Renfield responds, "I need to get out of a toxic relationship." The music now kicks in. We see that Renfield is at a self-help meeting, and the group leader says, "Why don't you start out by telling us what brought you here?" We get a quick cut of Renfield dragging a body through an abandoned location, cut in with some shots of a record player, music to Swan Lake, and candles. Renfield replies in a tone, choosing his words carefully, "My boss, he's different." And we see a wall with empty blood bags. An older woman in the support group responds, "You can't get him out of your head." Renfield says no. Then there's a close-up of a cane handle, then Dracula/Nicolas Cage's eyes with an otherworldly voice saying, "I need your assistance." With these, we see scenes of Renfield running and avoiding obstacles, saying, "I'm coming, master." Another group member says to Renfield, "You feel like he could destroy you with the snap of his fingers." We see Dracula snap and lightning flash as Renfield says he wouldn't even need to snap. We see a ghost go inside of a priest. That's the best description I can give.
Yeah, that's fair.
We see a ghost go inside of a priest. Renfield flinches with some squelching/exploding noises off camera. The group leader says, "Okay," and another woman says, "That sounds familiar." Renfield says, "Huh?" And then classic spooky music, the like do-do-do, like that music, with the title card from Universal Pictures before we see the outside of a New Orleans bar and then Renfield sitting at a table inside. There's a close-up of Dracula's very sharp teeth saying Renfield. And then Renfield looking across or around the others, Renfield looking around at the other people eating near him. Dracula demands, "Bring me innocent victims." Renfield sees a table full of nuns. Dracula's voice, "I want a handful of nuns," a busload of cheerleaders, with a bus full of cheerleaders driving by outside. Renfield sighs, his voiceover saying, "And I just want a normal life again." Several large black cars pull up outside, with masked people with big guns making their way inside. Renfield's narration, "But this modern world is a dangerous place." The people with guns come into the restaurant, shooting up into the air and getting patrons down on the ground. We now see standing in the middle one police officer, Rebecca Quincy, Aquafina. Renfield is down on the ground, hiding with the others, then notices his box of bugs that he keeps with him. He eats a spider, and his eyes start to glow. He now has special abilities and joins Rebecca, fighting the criminals in a series of quick shots. We see him stab someone with a fork, the screen cutting to black just before contact. It fades back up to people applauding, a surprised-looking Renfield with Aquafina's voiceover, "Thank you, you saved my life." Rebecca asks face to face, "Did I watch you cut a guy with a decorative serving platter?" Renfield says, "It's all on the wrist." Their title card, "This April," before seeing Renfield and Rebecca in a colorful apartment, with Renfield talking to a confused-looking Rebecca. "Let me explain. My boss gave me this power." We see several quick cuts of a headless figure with the classic vampire high collar, followed by more clips of Renfield and various action sequences. There's a shot of an abandoned building exterior with Renfield saying, "In return, I tend to his needs, including care and feeding." We see him dragging a dead body. Rebecca clarifies, "You bring him people to eat," followed by another action sequence in an apartment complex. Renfield crashes through a window to confront bad guys outside and punches someone. Rebecca tells Renfield on the couch, "You're like that guy that gets the villain's Postmates." It goes back to the self-help leader asking Renfield, "But if you were to stop focusing on his needs, what would happen?" There's a push-in on Renfield as he realizes he won't grow to full power. The group leader says, "Exactly, he won't grow to full power." What? That's so weird. Why would you phrase it like that? But yes. The screen goes dark again, opening back on a door opening to the group meeting. We see the cane in the doorway as the leader asks, "Hi, are you here for the meeting? Well, come on down." And Renfield saying no in slow motion. The figure steps inside, introducing himself. "Some call me the Dark One, others the Lord of Death. To most, I am Dracula." He finishes his introduction floating over the group. We see them all cowering in fear. The group leader says, okay, clearly we're dealing with a little bit more than just narcissism here. The Renfield title card comes on screen with a lot of bats, then Dracula saying, now let's eat, and baring his fangs at the camera.
Indeed.
This is a horror comedy, heavy on the comedy.
Yes, it is. Which I liked, because I like comedy. But also, I want the little music that you did.
Doo-doo-doo?
Yeah. I want that over a video of, like, a old castle, like, in those movies. If someone can edit that, where Maggie's going, da-da-da! over, I think that'd be great.
I'm glad I bring you joy.
But yes, this movie was a comedy.
Yeah.
There are horror aspects, and there is a lot of violence in this movie.
Yeah.
And I know in the last movie, I was like, I liked that we didn't see the violence. In this movie, I love that we see the violence, because it really fit. I think it worked really well.
I was surprised when rewatching the trailer earlier today, at like how obvious the cutaways are to violence. When there's like one shot, I think it's probably with the serving platter thing.
Yeah.
You don't see, it's like it just shows from the torso up, so you don't even see the guy's arms that are cut off from with the serving platter, and it's just like in the movie you see all of it. There are no cutaways. Yeah, this is horror comedy. The main focus of the trailer is really highlighting the modern take on the Renfield and Dracula dynamic. If you don't know, in the original, Renfield is just the servant to Dracula. He does eat a lot of bugs. Yeah, he eats I honestly, now I'm forgetting if it's Renfield or if it's another guy, but their character in Dracula eats bugs and stuff to gain power. So like it's taking that over into this version. It also doesn't really hint at any of the B plot elements of the movie.
Which there is a B plot.
There is a B plot.
I'd even say there's a C plot.
All right. Which like it doesn't need to, because like the main draw really is like that group, self-help group dynamic.
Yeah.
Which I really liked, and I wish the movie focused on it more.
That's fair. The movie had a good cast, which we already touched on. Nicholas Hoult is Renfield. Nicholas Hoult is known for many things. Recently, The Great is one of them.
That's his ongoing thing, and then
the Beast in some of the X-Men.
And then Warm Bodies.
Warm Bodies. He's the zombie in Warm Bodies, and he's also the boy in About a Boy.
It's about him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then Nicolas Cage is Dracula. I mean, we all know Nicolas Cage. Awkwafina is Officer Rebecca Quincy. Ben Schwartz is Tedward Lobo.
I really love that his full name is Tedward.
Tedward is great.
In the movie, I think they basically just call him Teddy.
Yeah.
But when I saw that on IMDb, and I was like, Tedward? Yeah. That's great.
I think Ben Schwartz is still probably most known for Jean-Ralphio in Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in so many other things. He voices Sonic in the movies. So
I would say that's the big thing.
That's another big one.
Yeah.
But like, I think like his face. If you see his face, then.
Shore Agdashlu, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, is Bella Francesca Lobo. That's Ben Schwartz's mom, or Tedward's mom. They are the Lobo family is like the big crime family that is in New Orleans in this universe.
And Lobo is Spanish for wolf, which Dracula has often been connected with in terms of like turning into animals and stuff. I know that much. I don't have to read books.
Adrian Martinez is also in this movie. He plays Chris, which is Rebecca Quincy's partner. And then Camille Chen is Agent Kate Quincy. She works with the FBI, and she is Rebecca's sister. Yep. So, some highlights of what happened in the movie.
Is this spoiler territory
This
now?
is the time where if you want to watch the movie, stop and come back.
Which I would say, if you haven't seen this movie, you should definitely watch the movie. But also, finish this podcast. So what happened in the movie?
So, Renfield has been Dracula's servant for almost 100 years, and now he's feeling regretful about taking advantage of others to give himself power. He also doesn't super love the dynamic that he has with Dracula now. Shocking. Yeah. He joins the self-help group dealing with unhealthy relationship, and they help empower him to stand up to Dracula. Spoiler alert, doesn't go well. There's like a whole montage of him like getting his own place. He starts dressing in pastels. He paints an apartment. He gets an apartment and then he paints it bright colors and stuff. Yeah. Really trying to branch out on his own, and then it doesn't work. And then there's the crime family, the Lobos. Trying to remember, because it's been a little while since we've watched this movie. Trying to remember which beats come first. But basically, Rebecca Quincy's dad, she is a second-generation police officer. Her dad was killed by the Lobos. And then she really wants to take them down, like, to support her dad's memory, get revenge and justice and all that good stuff. And then at some point, Renfield attacks someone who works for the Lobos, and that's how he gets connected to them. So they team up, and then the Lobos and Dracula team up. And then that's the whole big fight at the end is Renfield and Rebecca versus Dracula and the Lobos to get back Kate, who was kidnapped by Dracula. It's a whole thing. Honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's I don't know. I didn't super love the cop story. It kind of doesn't really go anywhere. Like, it's important for the plot, but
yeah,
it's not super compelling.
No, I mean, it was definitely a boring cop story.
Yeah.
I think the interest of it was Awkwafina is a cop.
Yeah.
That's really the push, I feel like.
Yeah. In a review from RogerEbert.com, gave the movie 2.5 stars. It says, hilarious details abound in production and costume design as Renfield seeks a cheerier, more colorful persona, far from the gothic aesthetic that's defined for him for the past century. But then he gets sucked into a boring subplot involving Awkwafina as the lone cop in New Orleans who's not corrupt. Her character, Rebecca, is seeking answers and vengeance for the death of her father, a legendary police officer. That's pretty much all there is to her character. Camille Chen, as her FBI agent sister, gets even less to do. Awkwafina has an exasperated, no-nonsense delivery that's amusing, and she and Holt have a spiky chemistry, so much so that you'll wish her involvement were more interesting. Similarly, Ben Schwartz gets to be obnoxious, and that's about it as a striving, drug-dealing son of a cartel boss, Shohreh Aghdashloo, in a paper-thin role as an array of fabulous power suits.
Yeah. I mean, like, with a movie like this, not everyone can have character development. Like, you can't... There's not enough room and time. Because, it wasn't, like, a super long movie.
No.
And so, like, if the focus really is Dracula and Renfield and, like, their dynamic and Renfield, you know, trying to stop being his lackey, then, like, Awkwafina's sister, I don't care.
I don't think she needs to be there.
No. The villain not having more of a backstory, I don't care.
I don't really care about
Awkwafina should have. Ben Schwartz had the right amount of character development for who his character was.
Ben Schwartz was really good as Tedward. He was the right kind of goofy for it.
Yeah. He plays, obviously, a bad dude.
Yeah.
This is not the first time. I feel like I saw something on Instagram or something where Ben Schwartz was like, I loved getting the chance to play a villain for the first time. I think maybe this is the first time he plays, like, the antagonist.
Yeah.
Like a villain. He has played bad dudes before. So, like, he's definitely had practice with that. But I think he definitely did.
I would say that he's the antagonist in the movie. He's definitely not the villain.
No,
Dracula's the villain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it doesn't necessarily, this is not the type of movie that is going to be heavy on character development, because it's a very vibes based movie.
This is a fun movie.
Yeah, it's fun. It kind of just gets bogged down in the plot that it sets up for itself. Like the initial setup of the dynamic of Renfield and Dracula, and like Renfield talking about narcissism and learning about setting boundaries and that kind of stuff is a very modern take on like mental health and stuff, and self-advocacy is definitely a newer version of this story.
And Dracula is like super manipulative.
Yeah.
In a way that like Renfield was like, oh, maybe he's right, because there is a weird backstory, not weird I guess, but like a somewhat compelling backstory with Renfield that Dracula brings up to manipulate him, where Renfield like basically chose to leave his family to be Dracula's lackey. And so Dracula's like, you made this choice, you know, you wanted to do this,
right?
so,
but this is all the interesting stuff in the movie, and then it sets up the police stuff, and then a kidnapping and trying to avenge Awkwafina's dad, and like that's not the new stuff. And it if it focused more on the initial setup that they had, I think it would have been I don't know, I really liked this movie overall, but it would have been a stronger one, I think, if it had followed through on the initial premise. Like what you said, I think it purposely doesn't go very deep with the story of like the deepest stuff that happens is Dracula placing the blame on Renfield and guilting him into staying in this dynamic, and Renfield kind of has to come to terms with the fact that like he can't put everything on Dracula. He did agree to have this relationship, and it worked for him for a really long time, and he has to acknowledge that he hurt people for almost 100 years. But then they mention like, or Awkwafina asks him about his family, and she's like, you might have a grandkid out there, and he's like, yeah. Anyway, like he doesn't really want to talk about it,
because like bringing like that story up with like his family, and then also the touching on the mental health issues is like they touched on it enough where it was like, oh, this is interesting, but it wasn't enough. Obviously you've said this already, but I'm trying to like the other parts were juxtaposed in comparison, just in like that I'm just rambling. I had it and now it's gone.
B-plot boring?
Yeah. But I think I'm trying to say that like they touched on it in a weird spot. Like it wasn't like too little or too much, but it was there.
Well, they talk the scene that I'm like trying to remember is it's in New Orleans, so they're eating beignets, and then it's right before Awkwafina finds out that her sister has been kidnapped. Yeah. So then the plot just goes with that instead. Yeah. And it doesn't really, like, there's not enough of the movie left to come back and talk about that. It's like the biggest character development is with Renfield, obviously. And it's really like he's unhappy, but he's not really doing that much to change his situation. And then there's the big restaurant fight sequence that was in the trailer where he sees Awkwafina obviously outnumbered and out-muscled. I don't know. She's the underdog of the fight, and he's like, oh, she's still standing up for people. I can do that too. I need to find a bug to eat. And then
he finds a bug.
Yeah, and then that's like the jumping point for him to work on himself and everything.
Also, at the big fight at the end, right? At this point, Renfield is he's kind of gone away from Dracula. But what's happening here is that now Tedward has become Dracula's lackey as like a business proposition.
Dracula partnered with the Lobo family, and then he was like, I can give you unimaginable power. And they're like, cool, that sounds good.
So it's like Tedward and all of their muscle eat bugs, and they're all super...
There's like a dozen people that have Renfield powers now. Yeah.
But then Renfield is like, I've been doing this for over 100 years and just kills everyone, basically. It is a ridiculous bloodfest action fight scene.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you really liked that one section of Kingsman where Colin Firth kills everyone, which I did, then you will like this movie. It is very bloody. It's very campy. I like a lot of the action sequences that are in it. Yeah. I think the goofiest one is at one point all of the people that are in the self-help group are killed by Dracula.
Yes.
And that is like, that one was verging on like, oh God, we're still watching this. Like, it's a lot.
That one was, which makes sense because, you know, Dracula
was lashing out.
Is Dracula. And
yeah.
So, like, you want his murders to be more gruesome.
Right. But it was also him like limiting Renfield's like net of people he can socialize with and contact. They're all brought back to life.
Yeah,
and then,
because it's revealed that Dracula's blood can heal.
Yeah.
And so after killing Dracula, they drain him of his blood and now have a big jar that says Dracula's blood, and then they bring everyone back to life, and the group leader is like, did I die? Like, what happened?
Yeah, they need different therapy by the end of the movie. It is like one of the last shots is the table of refreshments at the self-help meeting, and it's like cookies and coffee and stuff, and then there's a picture that says Dracula's blood, and I liked that vibe a lot. The like this review says, the production design and like a lot of details and stuff were very good and helped carry the film and like kind of through the parts that almost made it bogged down.
I was doing some reading up on it, and basically Nick Cage was who they wanted for Dracula from the get-go, partly because of that terrible Vampire's Kiss. Yeah. But also because they were like, we love Nick Cage. We think he could actually be a fun Dracula.
Correct.
And Nick Cage loves Dracula. Like, since he was a child and watched like Bram Stoker's, or not Bram Stoker's, but the original,
the 30s
one. 30s one.
Yeah.
Like he just has loved it ever since. Nick Cage is Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. And when Coppola made his Dracula movie with Keanu Reeves, not as Dracula, but Keanu Reeves is in it. Originally, Nick Cage was supposed to be Keanu Reeves' character.
Oh.
But apparently Coppola and Cage did not work well together on a movie like 6 years prior. And so Coppola was like, no. Which I think is so funny because Cage is in the industry because he's related to a Coppola. Coppola was like,
That is very good. That's got to be a weird Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. But Nick Cage like got really into this role. Like he watched like basically all of the Dracula adaptations and was like, what can I do that hasn't been shown before?
Yeah. I saw that, and then he was also talking about different inspirations like Malignant and The Ring. I think the Japanese Ring. And just like really paying attention to the movement of stuff and how to get into like it's a goofy monster in terms of dialogue, but he really commits to it, especially with the special effects and the makeup and everything. Like Dracula is gooey throughout this movie.
he gets wrecked very early on, and throughout the film he's being healed, and so like the makeup and special effects is amazing. Yeah. But like the commitment even more so from Nick Cage is that apparently so that he could fit the vampire fangs but still talk like easily, he filed his teeth down so that they would fit. Which, like, obviously when you're that big of a star you can just get your teeth replaced.
Yeah,
but like it is wild to me that he would be like, I'm going to put everything I can into playing Dracula for Renfield. Yeah. To the point of filing my teeth down so that I can talk normally.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this movie wasn't worth that, but the dedication that people have to just any movie that they're working on, just because that is who they are as a person, is always very interesting to me. Yeah. Even with like B and C movies, that's I think for a lot of people, that's why movie trivia is always interesting. Of like, you like to know what happens and like what went into a thing, even if the thing was awful. Like, people still thought about how to make it awful. That's wild.
Yeah.
One of the movie taglines is "Sucks to be him," and I like that.
That is very good.
It's short, straight to the point. We talked about it a bit already. Special effects, makeup is very good. The initial setup is Renfield and Dracula are kind of low on funds. The last vampire hunters in the world were just sent after them, and that's they have a whole initial confrontation. That's why a ghost goes inside of a priest at the trailer and gets exploded. So Dracula is at like at 5% for most of this movie, and then they need to relocate so that he can recuperate and they can find a new pool of victims. So he's gradually getting better, but you really, in the trailer, you really just see Nicolas Cage with Dracula makeup on, and then in the movie he is unrecognizable for a lot of it. Yeah, that's just, he did good for this role.
He did.
Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about the movie before going on to production facts?
I don't know. I mean, obviously our last 2 episodes were movies that we had problems with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we still enjoyed parts of them.
Yeah.
But there were more things that we had problems with, and this was a movie that we really kind of just had fun with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate, like, we're not talking about it as much, because we had fun with it. It's just like, we don't need to break down, I feel like, every good scene that we liked. It's just, we suggest watching it, so I feel like moving on to the production facts is probably fine.
So this movie was released April 14th, 2023 by Universal Pictures, and it was streaming on Peacock, available June 9th, with DVDs and stuff also released. Ratings wise, it got a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes, but with a 79% audience score.
So what do critics know?
53 out of 100 Metacritic and a B- on Cinema Score. That is such a wild difference between the critic score and the audience score. And because I was thinking about this earlier when I was looking at stuff, I feel like it's because critics don't necessarily know what to do with camp.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Camp is kind of hard to define. It's kind of a you know it when you see it thing, but it's intentionally in your face. It's not going to be subtle, and it's going to be a little bit bad. And but it's also like, you have to be very intentional to make something campy. So if you're going for it and you nail it, then I feel like your score should be higher than 58%, because that's what you were going for. But I also get how that's like, no, it's bad on purpose is kind of a cop-out. So that's, audiences like camp. Critics, not so much.
So, was this movie successful?
Not even a little bit,
That's a shame.
which sucks. Yeah. So it had a budget of $65 million. At the box office worldwide, it got $26.7 million.
Wow.
So not a lot. It debuted 4th at the box office, behind the Super Mario Bros. Movie, The Pope's Exorcist, and John Wick Chapter 4.
That's a lot of competition.
That's a lot of competition. I also
rough.
didn't expect The Pope's Exorcist to be second on that list, because I really have heard nothing about it besides being like Russell Crowe, and then that's it.
I guess eventually we will have an episode about it.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, heavy competition for this release. So that's unfortunate. It might be part of Universal's Monster Universe thing. Do you know much about this?
Oh yeah, the Dooku. Oh, I'm aware of the Dooku. I don't think this one is.
So,
because I thought, I mean, obviously, so it started with The Mummy, the Tom Cruise, right?
Well, so 2014, Universal Pictures announced they shared universe with a lot of classic monsters, including Dracula. This universe has had a really rocky time of getting off of the ground. So 2014 had the movie Dracula Untold.
That was supposed to be...
Which was supposed to be the kickoff of this, but people did not like it because it told a different origin story than the Dracula story, like the book.
It's Untold.
Yeah. So,
no,
and
I remember trailers for that one, and it didn't look good. I never watched it.
I also never watched it, never heard of it. So that tells you all you need to know about that movie. So started off rough. Then they tried to relaunch it with 2017's The Mummy.
Yeah.
There were some apparently connections between Dracula Untold and The Mummy that then got super, super downplayed because people did not like the Dracula Untold, and then they also didn't like The Mummy.
But also in that movie, Russell Crowe played Mr. Hyde or Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I feel like there was a Wolfman connection somewhere in there too. Anyway, there was another attempted relaunch with the success of 2020's The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss.
I did not realize that was supposed to be a part of it.
I didn't either.
Because I thought that was more of a thriller, stalker type of...
Everything that I saw about it was that was a thriller stalker situation. But if we're doing modern monsters...
Yeah, that's true.
Then that could be part of it. I also have not seen that movie because I feel weird about Elizabeth Moss.
Yeah,
because she's a Scientologist.
She was raised into it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a little different.
Yeah. So then, Renfield is based off of an original pitch from comic book writer and credited as a producer on Renfield, Robert Kirkman. After studios wanted a more humorous take on the story, they were really essentially going for What We Do in the Shadows, because that was also 2014, the movie.
Yeah.
They saw the success of that, and then they were like, oops, that's what we should have done. So I feel like the implication from the brief Googling that I have done is this could have been a part of the Monster Shared Universe thing if it had been commercially successful.
Yeah, which is this poor Dooku.
Yeah.
Because I saw recently an article after that this movie came out that they are once again relaunching
one of these days
with Guillermo del Toro heading it up.
That sounds better.
Where I think Shape of Water is connected into it.
I mean, that feels like a big retcon.
And I think he has a Frankenstein movie coming soon.
I had heard of
something
like that. Having Guillermo del Toro as your head seemed like a much better vibe than I forget the names of the guys who were supposed to originally oversee it with the 2014 launch.
Probably
but
Steve.
Well, it was statistically, yeah, but it was guys who, one of them, his big claim to fame is like doing a lot of Transformers stuff, and then the other one was well, it wasn't Michael Bay, but it was someone who worked with him a lot, and then it was another like Michael Bay adjacent dude. Where it's like, there's nothing wrong with those movies. It's just you don't watch Transformers for Michael Bay's writing.
Nope, you certainly don't.
Yeah. So, R.I.P. Dooku. Maybe it'll come back.
Who knows?
Maybe Guillermo will do it right. So filming for this movie began on February 3rd, 2022, and on February 8th, 2022, more than 20 vehicles belonging to the crew were burglarized at night. It seemed to really shake the crew's relationship with production. There was one person who was quoted as saying, "I really feel like this shows that they were not happy with the way the production handled it."
Yeah.
And they were saying like, this really shows that they don't care about us the way that they do the main actors and main characters, which with ongoing strikes, maybe they don't care about the actors as much either. So the crew, I just found this funny considering the police element that's in this movie. Yeah. The crew received an email from production saying, or like telling them about the break-ins, and then saying, due to the volume of cars and the lack of available police officers on duty tonight, there will not be any officers on site to take reports. And then they were given a link to fill out a police report online if their vehicle was broken into.
Wow.
So that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
man. So they filmed and released.
They finished filming to the day So what did I say? This was released April 14th.
Yeah.
They finished filming April 14th, 2022, and it was released April 14th, 2023.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a follow-up on the crew thing. That sucks, and I hope everyone got their insurance dealt with.
Yeah.
And then additional security was hired, so like there was some sort of follow-up with this. Also, there was a whole dance sequence cut from this movie.
Yeah.
Which we noticed when we were watching the credits, and then there was a lot of footage where it was like, oh, I did not remember seeing Nicholas Hoult dancing.
No.
Where did this come from?
So you can find that online.
Yeah. Nicholas Hoult released it to promote the movie in the first place, but then it's also on YouTube, and then it's also part of the special features on DVDs, which for one reason made me nostalgic of like, oh, that's good that still exists.
I feel like this movie has an extended cut somewhere, because there's also an actress who is in this movie who's like known for being in horror films, who was barely in it, but she was like, I was there for a while and filmed a lot of scenes.
Do you know who that was, or who she was in the movie?
She played the lawyer.
The lawyer. Oh!
Tedward's lawyer.
Yeah. She's in the station like once.
Yeah. And apparently she filmed many more scenes, according to her. And so I feel like there is probably... Because obviously movies cut things all the time, but like there were parts of this that...
Maybe we should get a Renfield DVD and see what deleted scenes are on there. So the dance sequence, it was kind of a dream sequence with people in costumes, like bug costumes, and then dancing to the song Higher and Higher. In the movie, it was supposed to come after Renfield's victory in the restaurant of dealing with the criminals, and then people are applauding him and everything. And then director Chris McKay, who his other credits are The Tomorrow War, the Lego Batman movie, and then he edited the Lego movie. 2 of
those movies are great movies.
Great, yeah. In an interview, he said, it sort of stepped on the montage where Renfield goes to therapy and gets inspired to get an apartment and change his life. It almost felt redundant, unfortunately, which sucks that a whole dream sequence felt redundant. But I feel like that's definitely within the tone of this movie. I don't think... There's a thing I saw recently of... there almost was a fart opera in the Barbie movie.
I'm so glad that was cut.
Exactly. I feel like I wouldn't have been taken out of the movie if there was a dream sequence dance number. Also, there was a video game of this movie.
Really?
Renfield Bring Your Own Blood was released April 12th, 2023.
That's so fun.
For Windows, it's described as a bullet hell rogue-like game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I don't know anything about reviews or how well it's done or anything like that. I just know it exists.
Yeah. I missed the days of video games being released with movies. Obviously, there are too many movies and video games are too big.
Yeah.
But I love that they released a little thing.
A little something, yeah.
That's so fun.
Do you have a favorite movie video game?
Oh, man. I don't know. A lot of them suck.
Yeah, that is the downside.
Most of them suck.
I feel like there was a pretty good golden age of a small video game, or like not one with a whole lot of thought in it.
Yeah.
Came out with a movie.
I think one that was weirdly good, because the movie sucked, was the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie, or game. The game was fun, and it told a story that made sense, and there were details that just were not there in the movie, and the movie sucked.
I think the weirdest one I had that I remember was the March of the Penguins game for the Game Boy. I played that a decent amount.
Do you narrate?
It was a like level side scroller thing. Like there were different platforms. You're controlling a bunch of penguins and you're trying to get them through obstacles to get to the end of the level so they can continue their march. It was kind of boring.
Yeah, I mean, it's a documentary.
The one that I liked a surprising amount was the Wii game for the B movie. It basically followed the plot of the movie, but then you also, like, you got different cars, and you could drive around the hive a lot. There was a surprising amount of thought that was put into it, and I really liked it, and then I remember we gave it to my cousins, so now I will never get it ever again.
That sucks.
Yeah. Anyway, should we move on to our rating of the movie?
Our rating of the movie. Our rating system is out of 4 with 5 tiers in that out of 4 system. 0 out of 4 means, oh no, that was not, no, stop, cancel.
Control-Alt-Delete.
1 is, that was a movie. 2 is, it's well made. It was a well-made movie.
We recently changed this in the last episode. The last one was, or before it was enjoyable.
2 episodes ago now.
2 episodes ago now.
Yeah, enjoyable. 3 is enjoyable and technically good. Kind of technically good. So this is where it gets a little iffy.
Yeah.
I think there's a merge here. 4 is Oscar worthy. Originally, with our original rating system, I said 2 out of 4.
You did.
It is a well-made movie, and I had fun with this movie. I still think it's probably a 2 out of 4.
That's fair.
Because while I do think it's fun, it's well-made, it's good, I don't think it's quite up. I think it is. I'll say it's a movie that I would rewatch because it is just a fun movie to have on.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it's quite the 3 out of 4.
I gave it a 3 out of 4, and I think that might be too high, but I gave We Have a Ghost 3 out of 4, and I feel like I had as much fun watching this as I did We Have a Ghost. The setup is really good. The characters are really good. A lot of the sequences within the movie are really good. It really is just the B-plot that really drags everything down.
I feel like, and this is the problem with us watching movies
a while
ago, I feel like there was something that happened in the movie or didn't happen that I was like, this would be a 3 out of 4. And it might be the dance sequence. It might be because they cut the dance sequence out that I was like,
I can't. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll be rewatching Renfield soon. Yeah. This was kind of a last minute schedule thing for us too, so we didn't really get a chance to rewatch it anyway.
With like what we said in the last episode, having to redo that one due to technical difficulties.
It threw us off,
and we had to cram 2 episodes into 1 week.
Yep.
And I'm working on a commercial for the next week and a half, so we kind of had to...
We switch things around.
Yeah.
So part of our episodes towards the end, we talk about a different movie that we have watched in 2023 that did not come out this year, but we watch a lot of movies besides the ones that come out this year. Which one do you want to talk about?
I want to talk today about, because I don't think we've done this yet. We need to make a list.
Yeah.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh, I don't think we've talked about that.
I don't think we have. And if we have, I apologize. But we're going to talk about it again.
Don't.
Maggie says, F you. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead is 80s? 90s?
Yeah, 80s.
80s?
Let me...
Okay. And basically, the title of the movie is the premise.
Yeah.
These kids get a babysitter.
91.
I thought it was 90s. These kids get a babysitter, and because their mom's leaving town, babysitter is evil. She's just the worst, and then just dies. Like, she dies immediately. The kids don't kill her.
No.
It's not murder.
She has a heart attack. She's old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't tell anybody, and they hide the body.
They immediately, like, don't want the adult presence of the babysitter. She takes herself out of the situation. So then they're like, let's just have a party summer.
Yeah.
Us 5 siblings all together. It'll be fine. And then it's Christina Applegate has to become a working woman.
Yeah, they realize they need money.
Yeah.
So she gets a job in the city at a fashion company that makes clothes. They make uniforms for different jobs. She applies to just be like a secretary.
Yeah, and then gets swept up into being like an executive
assistant. Yeah. And she's 17 or something. Like she's in high school still.
She's still in high school, because the ending of like everything is resolved and whatever, and then her boss is like, "What if you come work for me?" And she's like, "I might want to go to college actually."
So like she gets a job, and then the oldest son, her brother, who is younger than her,
but like maybe a year.
Yeah, he's a bit of a stoner.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants, hang out with his dudes,
his boys,
his bros.
Yeah.
He eventually also snaps into action.
They flip a pizza box for who will get a job and who will stay home and take care of the kids.
Yeah.
And she gets the job and he stays at home.
Yep.
And has to learn to pull his weight.
Yeah, and so he starts out with long hair. He eventually cuts it, discovers he loves cooking, and so he just starts cooking for everybody.
Yeah.
But also, there is a scene where we go into his room. I think the character's name is Kenny.
Yeah.
We go into Kenny's room because Christina Applegate, is that what you said?
Yeah.
She's going to yell at him because he's in there. He's not pulling his weight. He's just smoking reefer with his buds, his pals, his compatriots. The funny part was saying reefer. I understand that, but I thought it'd be better if I
just kept going.
Yeah. She goes in there and yells at him, and for whatever reason, they're in California, but for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is a weird thing of the 90s and 80s, but he has a Confederate flag on his wall, and we looked it up, and people are just like, why is this here? And no one knows. I
think it's just supposed to be like, edgy teenager dude, what's a good like visible sign that he's an edgy teenager dude?
How do we show that he's a real rebel? Confederate
flag. It's just there briefly, but it's enough. I mean, like, obviously it's 2023. You don't see that nearly as often now. So it was enough to be like, Also, his room smells so bad that maybe it killed the babysitter.
Yeah.
So maybe one of them killed her, but it would be a manslaughter charge.
There's also a love interest with Christina Applegate.
Yeah.
And then separately, David Duchovny is in this movie.
Yeah! That was great. I forgot about that for a second. Briefly going back to Renfield.
Yeah.
Awkwafina was listed in one review that I read as Renfield's love interest. Not really. There's kind of a connection, but they're
more buds.
They're more buds.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that dynamic. Anyway.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead is a fun, entertaining movie from the 90s.
It's also got some pretty good character development in like a goofy way.
Yeah. And I would suggest watching it. It's like a fun movie to just kind of like have on and watch. So that is our discussion of movies for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying tuned.
If you want to follow us places, that would be cool. If you want to keep up with us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, then algorithms wise it helps if you follow. Obviously we're on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you like trailers, we have one.
We do.
For our short film, Hello, My Name is Friendman. We'll be releasing more information and other trailers for that in the near future. And let us know what movies you want us to talk about next.
Yeah, leave comments. Ask us questions. Like, about the movies. And, like, right now, let's keep it about the movies. Eventually, when we make more stuff, you can ask us other questions. But for now, let's just keep it about the movies.
I feel like it's a pretty suspicious way that you phrase that. Only ask us about the movies.
There's nothing else that you need to ask us about.
Don't.
It doesn't concern you. Follow us on Instagram and ask us stuff there as well. But
only about the movies.
Only about, well, no.
Oh?
If we make a post that isn't about the podcast, then you can ask us questions about that.
You'll allow it.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it for now.
Okay.
So that's the end of today's episode. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
Bye.